All right, everyone. It is the live show for August 18th, 2021. I hope everybody is doing fantastic out there. Probably saying, what is this, Ed? What is this? Well, I'm still trying to figure this microphone situation out here. I am in Orlando, and I think this, by the way, I think this is a record that 3 weeks in a row, the live show comes to you from 3 different locations. 2 weeks ago, it was from my dad's place. Last week, it was at my place, the usual place. And this week, it is at an Airbnb in Orlando, Florida. Gotta be a record. Gotta be. But I am here, and it's a little echoey in here, so please deal with that. There is tile on the floor, and it's rebounds a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. And it seems to be very loud here. And the front door is like in this apartment, this Airbnb is like right there. So if anybody's walking by, they can surely hear what I'm saying. So I hope all of you are doing well. I'm over here for a disc golf tournament. And actually, after playing how I played today, I wish I wasn't here. I hate playing poorly. And I did that today. I had one below average round yesterday. Then I had a real good round yesterday. And then today it was just a disaster. Just a disaster. And I have to admit that I'm not in the greatest of moods right now. I don't like looking bad, is what it is. Being a performer, playing piano way back in the day, and then doing the acting that I did at Star Trek, and then working on shows, and of course doing this program, both the live shows, the episodes, and everything else, the think tank. I don't like looking bad. And so when I don't play well, I take it very, very seriously. I take it very hard. And I get really ticked off, probably way more than the average person does. And I am one of those people who, if I'm not winning, I'm not having any fun. it's the way I've always been. Life is too short to lose at things. So you might as well win. And like at trivia, I'm the same way. Now, trivia, we win quite a bit. But still, when we lose, I don't like it. Like I said, life is too short to be at the losing end of things. And I think I know for sure the people who win, who do play well and everything, have better lives than people who don't. That's what I think I know. So, that's what's going on with me. Now, the thing is, I still have 2 more days over here, 3 more rounds, 2 more, and one on Friday. There's going to be a cut. There's no way I'm going to make that. So the good news is that after on Friday, I will get to drive back to Clearwater Beach, and I won't have to stay here till Saturday. But there you go. So let's see who's in here. Hello, Charlotte. Screaming. How are you? Karen, K-Dog, Delane, and Jasmine. And thank you for moderating this evening, Cherie. Hello, Kathy. And Delane says, baby girl and hubby are back in Iowa after 2 months, so I have time to myself again. It's nice to have time. The family's great, Delane, but I know what you're saying there. And Screaming says the sound is good. Good. That's why I brought the stuff with me. Hello, Jill. Good to see you. Charlotte tells me you've got to be more forgiving of yourself. I forgive myself for a lot of things, Charlotte. Of course, none of us are perfect, but um, and I hear what you're saying. Don't worry, I've been told this 1,000 times by other people, but it's just the way I'm wired. And in fact, I'll mention something in a moment once I get through this. Hello, Alice. How are you? Hello to you. Screaming says, I feel the same way when I go to the shooting range. I hate shooting bad. You know, the funny thing is, Screaming, of course, when I go to the gun range, it's not a competition. I mean, you have the target and all that, but even with that, I do find myself competing against the people to each side of me with their targets and everything. I'm actually a pretty good shot, even though I don't shoot very often. With my Glock 19, I 35, 40 feet, I'm pretty good for a guy who only goes and shoots once every few months. But and I'm not as hard, but kind of, I guess I'm a little bit hard on myself on that too. But with the Glock 19, it's the Glock 43 that I have, Screaming, that I don't shoot very well. The Glock 19 is an ease to shoot, not the Glock 43. Kathy says, Charlotte, life is short, isn't it? Yes, it is. You're welcome, Alice. You know, going back to what you're saying, you got to be more forgiving of yourself. Charlotte, it is certainly something that I have to work on, that the attitude that I have doing Unfound needs to be the attitude when I go out and play disc golf and compete, whether it's like in a tournament like this. Now, this is a unique tournament. I'm here all week. It's a world championship. The level of play is higher. It is. And, so I realize that I have to remember that it's a lot higher than a normal disc golf tournament that I would be playing. But still, there are guys who I know who are playing here who I compete against and have beaten. They're performing much better than I am. But it would be nice if I could bring the attitude that I have doing Unfound onto the disc golf course. And what I mean by that is, I know for myself, I realize that these disappearances are very difficult. Now, I want to solve all of them. But I'm also a bit realistic about that. Although I think we do an excellent job. I think as a program and as a missing persons program, I think that we do the number one job of any program in the world. I believe that. I'm not saying that because I started Unfound and everything else, but I believe that. But I'm also very realistic that I know that we don't have, there is no, magic touch or anything. That just because Unfound covers a disappearance doesn't mean that it's automatically going to be solved. We know that. And so this is why when you've heard me talk about this before, this topic without the competitive part intermixed in, is that you have to be a happy warrior doing this, because a lot of the times you're going to fail, and that these cases are not going to be solved. Maybe ever. But still, you do it to the best of your ability because it's the right thing to do. And I think that if someone were to get into this and really, and think, well, I'm going to base everything on whether these cases get solved or not. And granted, that's what I do. But, if you're looking at this along the lines of, like a sporting competition or something, you're going to get burned out very quickly. Because there's going to be failure after failure, because that's just the way this is. What we're doing here is very, very difficult. And So when it comes to Unfound, people, how do you handle this? How do you emotionally, always talking to these people, and it's so tragic and sad, and a lot of these are murders, and how do you handle it mentally, Ed, and emotionally? And one of the things that is very well, as competitive as I am, this, when it comes to Unfound, it's just trying to do it the right way. And making sure these people understand that we haven't forgotten about them. I wish I could bring that attitude to the disc golf course, that, you know what, no matter how it goes out there, there's going to be bad shots, that you have to be a happy warrior out there. You have to be happy to be out there. You have to be, I wish I could take everything that I do with all, talking to all of you, and the enjoyment and everything that I do doing the program, communicating and talking to the assistants and all the guests and everybody that I've met doing Unfound for almost 5 years. We're coming up on the 5-year anniversary. I wish I had the ability to bring that to the disc golf course. That kind of happy warrior. No matter what happens, no matter if you hit a tree, no matter if you miss a putt, no matter if you're throwing the disc this way and it goes over there, that, you know what, you're going to be out here anyway doing this and playing. I wish I was like that on the disc golf course. I'm not. Because I am that way when it comes to Unfound, because a lot of things, sometimes things don't go the way I would like. As I've talked about many times, people back out of interviews, and this happens and that happens. Things do not always go smoothly, and still I don't get 1/10 as ticked off about that as I do actually, like, for example, went on with the disc golf tournament today. That's not good. That's not good. So I wish I could. And maybe it's something that I need to think more about. This part of my life, which is the major part of my life, Unfound is 24/7. Even when I was out on the disc golf course today, I was working on the outline because we were out there and we got a rain delay and everything else. I didn't have time to put together a regular outline tonight. So I was doing it on my phone as I was playing. I was putting the outline. And so the outline for tonight's show is right here. So, it's a 24/7 thing. Even when I'm out on the disc golf course, whereas when I'm doing Unfound work, that's all I'm doing. So there's just something there. And I think it is something that I really need to concentrate more on, because, there's some balance in there between, the performer side of me, which is, you're out there, you got to look good. You got to play well. You got to talk well. You got to, you got to do things. You got to keep score, all of that, and get it perfect, because that's the performer side of me that goes way back, almost 50 years, starting to play the piano when I would have recitals, and you'd practice and you'd go play the concert for a bunch of people. And then, like I said, it continued over into Las Vegas and everything. That, when the lights are on, you better perform. That's why you put all the work into it. So there's the competition between that kind of mentality, which is perfectly fine. I mean, that's what we expect, as an audience. When I go to see Iron Maiden, or I'm going to be going to see Judas Priest and everything, you know what? They better get the songs right, or else, So there's that. But there's also the other side of it that, like I'm saying here, that there has to also be a happy warrior side to this, because in a particular game like golf, ball golf or disc golf, it's very mental. It's much more mental than a lot of other sports. Mainly because, in pitching in baseball, if a pitcher gets out there and has a few bad innings, they just bring in a relief pitcher and it's no big deal. There are no relief pitchers in golf. You're stuck with whatever you showed up to the course, bringing. Whatever you brought is what you're going to have to live with. Nobody can come in here to bail you out. So there's that. And so we're 17 minutes in and I'm talking about all this. So yeah, Screaming says, I feel the same way when I go to the shooting range. You're welcome, Alice. How long have I been playing competitively, Delane? Well, I started competing like in 2012, but I was not very good. And then I won a couple tournaments in 2015. And then for the next 5 years, I got something called the Yips. I've talked about this before, where I couldn't get the disc to go where I wanted. And really, it's only been within the last year that I've gotten, I would say, over them, and I've become a better player. But when you start playing better, I've lost a lot of time. The truth is, for having competed for like 9 years, I should be better than I am. That's true. Especially given my athletic background, and I take care of myself, and I do go out and throw, and I am in the club and all these things. I should be a better player than I am. And that's also, I think, what's kind of going on in the back of my head when I go out to the course today and stink. So I would say that most players who have been playing continuously for the last 9 years are better than I am by a lot. And it's very, very frustrating. Although I give myself a bit of a break because of those 5 years, which were a complete mess. But still, I've fallen way behind, and I don't like feeling like that. Carol, Alice says it's raining here in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania. Yeah, well, it rained here just a little bit today, Alice. We had a weather delay. That's why I didn't get home till like 20 after 7. I was expecting to be home by 6. Or back to this place by 6. Carol, I think you've had very good parents. You're very strong and well-adjusted. Well, thank you, Carol. Carol, I will tell you that I get my competitiveness surely from my mother. My mother was the same way. She didn't like losing. I can remember going back to being, back, I don't know, 40 years ago. My dad, my mother, and I playing Monopoly. And I can remember my mother wanted to win so bad. And when she would lose, she would go cry in the closet. It's a saying that my dad and I still have to this day, even though my mother's been gone for almost 3 years. Well, why don't you just go cry in the closet? That was something that my mother used to do when she would lose at a board game. That's true. I'm sure I get all of that from her. When we used to play trivia games, like when we go to Canada fishing. Yeah. So, so I do get that from my parents, but I try to keep this in perspective, but I just don't like performing poorly. Hello, Laura. How are you? I think I have a question from you that I'm going to answer tonight, Laura. Yes. Being that we're 20 minutes in, this would probably be a good time that everyone, if you are either watching live right now on August 18th of 2021, or you are watching in the replay, please give this video, this live show, a thumbs up. Please do. Please give it the thumbs up on whatever device you are using. And if you'd like to, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell button so that when new videos are uploaded or this live show starts every Wednesday night, you will be alerted so you don't miss anything. Once again, please give this video a thumbs up. Karen, maybe you have too much other stuff on your mind when playing disc golf. Well, it's, Karen, that may be the case. Unfound, being responsible for this program is a lot different than all the other experiences that all the other guys have, that I play with. Most of them, though some of them maybe are some business owners or something. I don't really know how many of that there are, but Unfound is a 24/7 pursuit for me. It's not unusual for on a Saturday night for me to be at home, writing something, listening to a phone call that has been done, taking notes on it, typing out an interview outline, doing these things. It's 24/7, Friday nights, Saturday nights, Monday mornings, or whenever. Even for example, this Sunday afternoon, Emily already has two phone calls with new people scheduled for this Sunday afternoon. It's 24/7, and that's fine, and I love it. Okay. But what goes along with that is that all these other guys, they're probably 9 to 5ers or some sort of job where, they're clocked out. They maybe work 50, 55, 60 hours a week, but when they're off, they're off. When they're not working, they're not working. And Karen, so there may be something to that. Although I make my own hours, that also means that I work 7 days a week. They don't make their own hours, but that means they may only work 4 or 5 days a week. So they really do have days off. I never have a day off, and I don't want a day off. Although you could consider, this week a little bit of a vacation, maybe similar to when I went fishing with my dad and my buddy Doug and his son almost 2 years ago. I was there for a week, but I still did Unfound work. An episode still came out while we were in Canada. I can remember using their Wi-Fi at the cottage we were at to upload the episode. The Wi-Fi was so slow. I think it took like 2 hours to upload the episode or something like that. It was crazy. So, I'm never off. So there may be something to that, Karen. Maybe. But that's what's going on. I came over here on Monday, played 2 rounds yesterday, one long round today, 2 rounds tomorrow, and then another round on Friday. Then there's rounds to be played on Saturday, but there's a cut, and I have to finish in the top 23, and I'm like 38th out of 70 right now. I guess if I get hot tomorrow and Friday, maybe I can make it close. But really, had I made the cut, it probably would have been a bit of a surprise anyway. I just don't like playing as poorly as I did today. It's just totally embarrassing. So I'm over here. It's an Airbnb. It's an apartment, and it's pretty nice. I like it. It reminds me a lot of the apartment that I had, the 1-bedroom apartment that I had when I lived in Las Vegas on East Tropicana, going way back 20 years ago. Something like that. That's what it really reminds me of. Brings back memories. But Sharon, thank you. I am so consistent. I try to be, Sharon. Thank you. You're very kind. Thank you for the contribution, Sharon. That's very nice of you to do. Delane asks, is that room painted black? No, that's actually, Sharon, it's a very, very dark blue. It's not quite black. It almost is black, but it's not. It's a very dark blue. And the bedroom is blue. And maybe you can see a little bit. I'll point the camera. You can see this wall, it's white, but it has like these black painted stripes on it, dashes or something. So, yeah, it's not too far. I don't know. It's a nice Airbnb. It got very good reviews, very reasonably priced, and that's why I decided to stay here this week. I have to admit that I would have loved, if you'll remember, maybe a month ago, longer than that, I was over here for a tournament, and I stayed at a hotel that was connected to a mall. I really enjoyed that. Too expensive. I could have gone back there and stayed there. It would just a lot more money. So that's why I'm at this Airbnb, and it's great. Bed's very comfortable. Air conditioning's very cool, cold. On the TV, you have one of those smart TVs with YouTube and everything. So it's very nice. I just wish I was playing better. Other than that, uh, things continue to be the same. Not much else going on. So let me look at my outline now that I'm going to let's see what we got here. All right. You're not playing well. Yep. Okay. But so I got my little outline here. I'm going to post it right there, put it right there for my phone. But so that's what's going on with me. Almost a half hour in to this live show. And that's good because my outline is not as long as it usually is. Partly because I had to put most of it together while I was on the disc golf course today because I wasn't sure actually if I was going to get home to even take time to take a shower and everything. Luckily I did and got my hair decent. But that's really not got anything else going on with me personally. That's about it. I do have to admit one more thing on disc golf before I move on. I am actually contemplating maybe taking next year off and not playing any tournaments. There's just some other things. I spend a lot of money signing up for tournaments and going to stay in these places and everything. And I think for a year, I think that I would like maybe to do some other things and to put that in a different direction. I would like to concentrate a little bit more on, I'd still play in the club and I'd probably still go play doubles on Tuesdays at Taylor and everything. But as far as traveling and spending money and registering for tournaments and everything else, I think I'm going to maybe take a year off and devote that to some other things. I'd like to get a lot better playing the guitar and some other things. And once again, there are only so many hours in a day and everything else. So, you have to pick your places, pick your points, I guess. All right, let's move on to the items for tonight's discussion, moving into the true crime part of the program. Hello, Deborah. Hello with the hearts. Thank you. Look at you, all these people with these fancy hearts and everything. So neat. The Robbie Hurt poll, of course, this past Friday, we did an in memoriam for him. Thought it was about time. Kind of, when it comes to these in memoriams, you don't want to do them too quick if you think that, there might be, some further developments or something like that. But, Robbie's, I like I said in the episode, I'm fairly sure that there was no foul play, and nobody is more surprised than I am that that's the case. But the Robbie Hurt poll, are any of you surprised by the results? And most of you said no. Whereas I was surprised. And as I wrote in the blog this week on Patreon, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, I admitted that I got it wrong. And it was really good Patreon blog this week. Last week, it was like almost 5,000 words. This one was a lot shorter this week. It was still 3,000 words, but I went through a lot of points in relation to Robbie's disappearance. And This is one of those that I got it wrong. I just have to live with it. But it was very even interesting as I wrote in the blog at patreon.com/unfound podcast that I can remember one of the things I specifically remember when we covered his disappearance, and it'll almost be a year. We covered that in September of last year. That I can remember going into the think tank thinking, I pretty much believe we're all going to agree on this one. There's no way that story that Bob told is true and everything. And I was stunned that many people in the think tank really did believe it happened the way it did. And I think one of the reasons that these people believed it and I didn't is because some of the think tank members have experiences like this. They have addiction in their families. They know all about Narcan. They have dealt with addicts many times. And the story that was told just rang very true to them, once again, due to their experiences. Whereas I don't have any experiences like that. Of course, I don't have any kids, so I don't have any kids that could have become addicts. I don't have any friends, at least to my knowledge, that are addicts, or at least they don't act like it. Of course, my parents were not into that. So I don't have a lot of experience in this area. And I think it probably affected my ability to identify, with what the story was. And this is one of those things about disappearances. Sometimes understanding disappearances is more than just knowing a lot about disappearances. It's you also have to know maybe things about other things. You may have to know something about cars. You may have to know something about, some, health issues. You may have to know something about computers and all, knowing, about disappearances might not be, might not be enough. So once again, in the discussion group, the poll, most people said they were not surprised by the result of Robbie Hurt's disappearance and then his remains being found. And whereas I was. And the think tank members, a majority of them were not surprised either. So there you go. Delaine's talking about her name, Delane. That's a very unique name. I don't think I know any other Delaine. I don't. No, I don't think so. Sharon says, love /patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. And once again, if you'd like to contribute through PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. Delane says, all of us have some handicaps when it comes to certain cases. Yeah, we do. A lot of it has to do with life experience, Delane. And I have to admit, though, on the other hand, it's not like I'm dying to have any close relationships or friendships with, people who are into drugs or anything like that. For the purposes of the program, we'll cover the disappearance of anybody. But when it comes to my personal life, I stay away from those people. So it just might not be something regarding people with addictions or people who have recovered from addictions and all that environment. It may just be me something, Delane, maybe that I never will, experience firsthand. Once again, if you are watching this live show or you're watching in the rerun, please give this podcast live show a thumbs up so that we can be good with the YouTube algorithms. Charlotte asks, Ed, do you know what Robbie died from? I don't, Charlotte. I did try to contact his mother before the In Memoriam episode came out, but she did not get back to me. I wouldn't look any further into that. The way I remember Becky is that I think the last time I spoke to her, she was going camping or something. She gave me the impression, even when I interviewed her originally, she does have a large family. She does, and she does a lot of things with them. So she never got back to me. Maybe one of these things, Charlotte, that maybe due to the remains being out there for so long, they'll never be able to tell. My impression is that Robbie's remains were found in total, unlike, for example, Tom Brown's. But that may have to do with the area where the remains were. I just don't know. Thank you for posting that, Sheree. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Delane, but the more cases we cover, we will all learn more about certain life experiences, such as addict behavior. It's true. I mean, we've certainly covered a lot of disappearances regarding people with addictions or people with former, people who were addicts, for example, Crystal Morrison. And of course, Delane, we're always learning, but when it comes to personal experience, that is a little bit different, but you're right. Deborah says, unpredictable behaviors can really muddy the waters. That is certainly true. All right. So the Robbie Hurt poll, most people were not surprised by the results of his disappearance. Let's move on to this. I need to just mention this. A big fan of Unfound. She was not a guest on the program, but a big fan of Unfound passed away recently. Her name is Michelle Cole, and she came to listen to Unfound and be a very devout follower of the program through the disappearance of Brandy Wells. And she knew Brandy. She knows the family. She's been very involved ever since Brandy went missing in Texas. She was very involved in it. Of course, we covered that disappearance going back to 2017. And she passed away from cancer within the past week. And if you were to even go to her Facebook page, and this is one of those things about the 21st century with social media that, deceased persons' social media accounts continue to exist after they're gone. It's just strange. But she was posting about missing people up until just a couple days before she died. And she was not that old. She was in her mid to late 50s. I believe that she had lung cancer. The last time I shared any messages back and forth with her were in June. And back then she was hoping she was going to be getting another round of tests or something like that. And she was very hopeful that things would go in the right direction. I guess they did not. I did not speak to her since then. Really did not know what was going on. And then I think it was either my assistant Carrie or my assistant Emily, who Emily spoke with Michelle once in a while, who let me know that Michelle had passed away, I think about a week ago. She was one of the first people. This live show is not yet 4 years old. I think I started it in October of 2017. It was originally on Tuesdays and then got moved to Wednesdays. Originally started on Facebook Live. Of course, now it's on YouTube. But Michelle was one of the first people to start watching it way back then. Now, she hasn't been involved as much maybe over the past 6 months or something because of her illness and whatever else, but she was one of the first people back in the day to take an interest in this live show when I was doing this live show, and there are like only 3 or 4 people watching. Michelle was one of them, and even when it would be posted, the live shows would only get like 25 views even on Facebook or something. But she was one of those people that took an interest from the beginning, and I always deeply appreciated that. And when I did find out about her cancer diagnosis, and earlier this year, of course, I hoped that she would make a full recovery. Unfortunately, she did not. But I told her that whatever happens, that myself, my assistants, Unfound, and the listeners will not forget about Brandy. We will not allow that to happen. So, and so we're going to follow through on that. Maybe some of you are not familiar with Brandy's disappearance, but I continue to believe that she left that bar with that guy in the white cowboy hat, and something happened. And it's just unfortunate that I guess at least as far as the public knows, the guy in the white cowboy hat has never been tracked down. If you remember, her car was found parked along the highway, not far from the bar. Her phone was found. Well, it was found in the possession of someone who said they found it on the sidewalk in that area. But I still continue to be convinced that the guy, because he's never come forward. Once again, my impression about this disappearance, they've tried to track him down. He's never come forward, which should tell us something. So, but Michelle was very much emotionally invested in that disappearance, knowing Brandy's family, and she's now gone. And it's very sad. This is, I feel the same way about this, the way I do with the 4, of course, guests who are no longer with us. See if I can name them. Jessica Curtis, of course, the mother of Kim. I knew I was going to... I hate this. I should have typed these all out, but I know some of you, of course, know them. But of course, Jessica Curtis, Tyler Stice's sister, Donna Jean Cap, the sister of Dorianne Myers. Who else? Kimberly Norwood's mother. Of course, she passed away. And one more. Who is it? I hate that I can't. Each one of those, there's four guests who have passed away, who have been on Unfound. And, you kind of feel like we failed. There's a feeling that goes along with it, that you just wish that these things would have been resolved before they passed away. And that's just not the way it has gone. So Michelle Cole was her name. She served for social media. Thank you, Kathy. Jennifer Wilkerson's mom, Vicky, of course. Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you. Yeah, Vicky Wilkerson. What a great person she was too. Very sad. Got to know her really, really well. So, Michelle, you can find her once again. If you're in the discussion group on Facebook, you can still find her as a member of the group. And that's, like I said, it's so weird with social media these days. So just keep her family, thoughts and prayers for her. And let's make sure that we follow through on not forgetting about Brandy. And that's the best way we can to honor Michelle. Moving on. it's already getting toward the end of August. It seemed like just yesterday was my birthday. But next Thursday, I will be getting together again with Dr. Telesco on her YouTube channel, the Fischler College of Education School of Criminal Justice channel, next Thursday, so a week from tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. And we will, actually, when did I text with her? Yesterday. And I asked her what she wanted to do, and she would like to do another missing persons fundamentals show again. So, okay, that's what we'll do. So next Thursday, instead of us talking about a specific case, we are going to just talk about missing persons cases and disappearances in general, some of the theory behind it, some of the things that we've discovered after almost 5 years of covering disappearances. And so next Thursday, and of course for her, they're getting back to school very shortly there at Nova Southeastern University. Let's see what some of you are saying here. Kathy says, I will really miss Michelle. She was so kind to me. Yeah, Sheree agrees. Kathy says, lung cancer, 56. That's right. Deborah says that she lost her husband to cancer when he was 52. Yeah. And yeah, thank you, Kathy, for reminding me the fourth guest who has passed away is Jennifer Wilkerson's mother, Vicky. That was a kind of sudden one. Of course, Donna Jean Cap, I knew that she had a lot of health issues. In fact, I think that's the reason she eventually did do an interview for Unfound, because she put me off for a long time. Like 2.5 years, long time. And then we did the interview, and then it was just like 3 months later, she passed away. Of course, Jessica Curtis's sudden. Kimberly Norwood's mother, I just don't know if it was sudden or not. I had talked to her once in a while, and I know that her husband had died first. And, it's so common with married people. One dies and the other one passes away not long after that. Of course, that's not what's happened with my mother and father, but it's very common. But I don't even think it was a year from the time that Kimberly's father died to her mother dying. And so Jennifer Wilkerson's mother, Vicky, I'm not sure if she had been suffering, she never passed anything on to me. So I just don't know. Suzanne says, I think Michelle now knows what happened to Brandy now. I believe they are in heaven together right now. Yeah. So, yeah, just kind of a downer, just a complete downer. And, it's just one of those things, you cover 200 some disappearances. Eventually, that people will start, people who you've gotten to know very well, gotten to know them, personally, that they are going to pass away. It's just the law of averages. And you hope it's not going to happen, but, nobody lives forever either. But every time it happens, it just sucks. Delane says Jessica's death was so sad. She has so much tragedy in her lifetime. She did. Yeah, that was the first one, Delane. That was October of 2018. That was no more. It was a little over a month before my mother died. And I remember that like it was yesterday, because I was here in Orlando when I found out about it. I was with my sister. I think it was a Tuesday. And I had just spoken to her this like 2 days before that through Messenger. It's bad. Let's move on to this. Some upcoming episodes. Of course, we'll talk about this coming Friday's episode. But next Friday will be update episode number 9. Got a lot to talk about. And so that'll be something that I'll start working on once I get back to Clearwater Beach. Excited about doing that. And then the 5-year anniversary of Unfound. Hard to believe. What is a 5-year anniversary of the gift? Is it bronze or brass or something like that? I don't know. Copper. 5-year anniversary coming up the first Friday of September. So I will replay, as is customary now, to replay the first interview ever done. Essentially the most part of the first episode ever done, interviewing Mary Lyle. And as I think I've stated this before, it's always interesting for me to go back and listen to some of those original episodes, or the first episodes, I should say, and compare them to the ones now. They've changed a little bit. Very, very slowly. It's a slow evolution and everything, but it's interesting how things have changed from when I said, okay, here's how the episodes are going to be to how they are now. It was a slow transition, but I have to say, I think as far as my voice, the format and everything, I think it's been pretty consistent for about the last 4 years. But that first year, I think I would still learn it, looking for my shtick, I guess you might call it. If I was a stand-up comedian, I'd be saying that I think I was still looking to find my shtick. Yeah. Suzanne says, always love the updates. Suzanne says, 5 years, hard to believe. Nobody is more surprised that we've made it to 5 years than myself, Suzanne. Trust me. Nobody more than myself. So let's move on to this. Let's answer a question, being that I know she's in here. Laura asked me, and I did not type out the whole thing here, Laura, but Laura asked me about DNA. Why does it take so long? What's going on with that? And she brought up a disappearance that we covered, of course, Ronald McNutt, who went missing in California. And then after a forest fire, his truck was exposed over like a cliff. There were remains in it. And now, even 4 years after, the truck has been found, something like that, 5 years. To my knowledge, the DNA has still not come back for it. Why for him? Why is that? In contrast to, for example, the original Night Stalker, when they were able to track him down, they got his DNA, and it seemed like they tested it, in like 24 hours. So what's going on here, Laura? I don't, I talked about this at the time during that episode. I probably even wrote about it in the Patreon blog. Maybe I didn't, but it would seem like that might be a good topic to write about. But I have spoken about it on this live show before. It's just hard to say what's going on. On one hand, I could certainly believe that high-profile cases are getting pushed to the front, especially maybe something like the original Night Stalker. A lot of interest there. He is a murderer. He killed quite a few people. He also raped about 50 women, and it was something that went unsolved for over 30 years. I think that we'd gotten to the point. I know the original Night Stalker topic fairly well. I even have a book on it. And in fact, I don't know if I've ever told you. I know I've mentioned this, but surely I've not mentioned this recently, that I actually had some correspondence with, what's her name? What was her name? Michelle McNamara, who married to the comedian Patton Oswalt. Maybe he's most famously probably known for playing the voice of the rat in Ratatouille. But she, was into true crime. She had a blog called True Crime Diary that I can remember going to way back in the day. And I actually had a correspondence with her years and years ago, 10 years ago, maybe. regarding the original Night Stalker. And so I know a lot about it. And it very well could be that something like the original Night Stalker and the DNA is just because of what it is. I don't like it. On the other hand, although there's no proof of this, it may be that, if it is Ronald McNutt, if it's surely his truck, but maybe they just weren't able to get any DNA, maybe because of the fire, maybe because it had been sitting down in that, in the valley so long. I don't know if any of the window, did the windows break when it went over the side? Who knows? I just don't know the science well enough, but maybe that could be it. Because I know that Ronald McNutt's family, his daughter who was on the program, have given DNA and everything. I don't think that's the issue. It very well may be that have just been unsuccessful at getting a good sample. And that happens. That happens. Especially after you consider a fire went through there. What could it have done to his body? If it is Ronald. So I'm just not sure what to say. I think just in general, Laura, you would think that DNA tests would get done a lot more quickly. Of course, we remember Andrea Bowman's took a while, and it was fairly obvious it was she in Dennis Bowman's backyard. And then we had the same issue with Austin Piva. So we're talking about, two different states, and still having the same issue. Of course, Andrea in Michigan, Austin in Idaho, although technically it was kind of a federal case. And then we have California from Ronald McNutt. You have these long periods. I just don't know. So, Laura, I wish I had a better answer for you. It very well could be that due to trials and killers being caught, that those get moved to the front. Very possible. And there also might be some other reason, though. But I do think I've read enough to know that there does seem to be a huge DNA backup out there. And it's probably even worse these days due to COVID. But there is a huge backup out there regarding DNA. So maybe it's just that we just have to be happy that, it's going to, I'm not saying we have to be happy about, we just have to be rationalize or be reasonable with the idea that this is how long it takes. Charlotte says, I read the book she wrote about him. It's funny, Charlotte, I've not read the book that she wrote about him. I heard it's very good. I've not read it. I can tell you that my correspondence with her, like I said, I'm going to say it had to have been since I moved to Florida. So within the last 10 years, that very cordial, got right back to me, very friendly. And I always remember that. And I try to remember that when it comes to listeners or viewers contacting me, that I always want to try to get back to them in a very timely manner. And if they're asking questions, I try to answer them everything and don't blow them off. And so I always think of Michelle McNamara when I think about that. Deborah says, used to live off the same road in Ventura when Golden State Killer killed the Smiths. I remember that. Yeah, I have the book. If I was at home, I would show it to you. But the book that the former investigator wrote, book has to be 20 years old now. But I have that book. Have it. Charlotte says his crimes were so horrific. They were. Delane, I just read that the intensity of the fire and how badly the bones were burned as to whether they can obtain DNA from the bones. It seems a very good theory, Delane. But on the other hand, we do know that people have been identified after fires We know that people have been identified after 9/11 in the World Trade Center elsewhere. So um, they have the technology, but it just depends. It just depends. So, Laura, I'm sorry I don't have a better answer for you. Charlotte, I have that book too. I also read the book his brother-in-law read about. Okay. That's the only question I got for tonight's program. If you have any other questions you'd like to ask me, feel free. Just type them right there in the chat. Moving on, season 2, volume 3 is just about done. My guy Jonathan, who is working on it, of course, did season 2, volume 2 as well, and he's already started on season 2, volume 4. The cover is finished, but I've not, due to disc golf stuff, I've not had a chance to post it so all of you can see it, but it's just about done. When it is posted to Amazon in both ebook and print form, I will post the link so all of you can see that. And I hope you will consider getting it. And these will be disappearances that were covered right there in late, but not the end, but very late in 2017. So some of those are Evelyn Hartley's is going to be in there. Patty Actions is in there. Troy Galloway will be in there, just to name a few. So if you go find the list of all the episodes, if you find them, there's going to be 8 in there, and those are a few of them. I think is Danielle Bell, I think, another one in there? I think so. So once again, you'd be looking at those cases from right around late September to early November of 2017 is when those episodes came out. So Sheree says, life is so unpredictable. Make sure you tell the people in your lives how you care about them. Yeah, moral of tonight's show. Yeah. Yeah, this show got deep quick, didn't it, Sheree? Start off with my story about disc golf and everything. It's kind of been a little bit of a downer live show. And I do have to admit, I am feeling the effects of being out in the Florida sun, especially today. I have to admit, feeling a little parched, but I refuse to drink anything or anything during the shows because I think that looks weird. But you're totally right, Sheree. Well, there's Marlene coming in an hour late, but we'll take her anyway. Marlene, good evening, everyone. Hi, Ed, just coming on. Been under the weather again this week. I might have another infection again. Oh, no, since my pores seeing surgery. Oh, my. Well, hang in there, Marlene. Wow. Okay. Delane, I think they have to rely on dental records if bones are too badly burned, so I guess obtaining dental records for comparison may delay the process. Yeah. If they know in Ronald McNutt's case, if they even know what dentist he had, there's that. So that can make things a little difficult as well, Delane. But either way, you would think, being that I didn't write it down, but I don't have it off the top of my head, but I think that his remains were found, or the truck with the body in it was found like 5 years ago or something. It should have been done by now. And I know I see Leslie on Facebook all the time. I'm just wondering, I haven't talked to her in a while. That's going to have to put that on the list of things to do. Contact her and get some follow-up. And of course, being that we have an update episode coming up, maybe that might be good for that as well. Deborah says, are you watching any of the Durst trial? I am not, Deborah. I know what it is. I'm guessing at least a couple of my assistants are following it. Shree, would you be following the Durst trial? I've not. I usually don't, Deborah, follow trials. I remember when court TV started like 30 years ago. I would watch it all the time, but it's been a while since I've watched anything on there. I will tell you this. I mean, if, for example, if the Steve Pankey's trial is on there, I'll watch it, of course. if any other of these disappearances or murders that we've covered end up on end up on Court TV, I'll watch for sure. In fact, I'm sure I'll DVR it. But other than that, probably not, Deborah. But no, I've not watched it. Marlene says, I will. Thanks, Ed. I loved your newsletter. Heard it last night. Look at you, Marlene. Thank you for listening. And that reminds me to all of you. Yes, the latest newsletter is now on audio at the unfoundpodcast.com. If you would like to listen to it. Of course, people who are actually on the email list get it right on the first day of the month. And but for everyone who's not on the email list or just doesn't like reading, I've started recording it, reading them and recording it, and then posting it to the website. And then I see that Natasha has also posted it right here on this YouTube channel. So that's how one of the things we've switched up recently, and I think it's a move for the better. Sheree says she's only watching highlights of the Durst trial. Okay, Sheree. Marlene says, I remember Court TV, Robert Durst, yawn. Charlotte says, I can hardly even stand to watch the news anymore. I really don't watch news, Charlotte. I may read news, but you would never catch me watching any news on TV ever. Local, national, international. I never watched news on TV. Deborah says, Ed, your conversation with Panky was so excellent. Well, I appreciate that, Deborah. I did the best I could. I think a lot of people thought the interview was good too, but on the other hand, I think that they believe that Steve Panky was lying. I did my best to try to answer him the toughest questions that I could think of, but and I don't know if he made any contradictions or not. However, what I will say, though, is that being that he did do this interview with me, that I'm guessing investigators probably listened to it and checked what he had to say, what he told me, and what he has told them over the last 30-some years. So I'm sure that was done. So even if I didn't catch him in any lies necessarily just by listening to the interview, it may have been a situation where the law enforcement could use the interview for their own purposes. And if that's the case, I'm fine with that too. But I appreciate that, Deborah. Delane says, I was kind of interested in watching Durst testify. He's not going to do himself any favors by testifying. Suzanne said, I read it and watched on YouTube, the newsletter. Thank you, Suzanne. I'm hoping that more people will take part in the newsletter now that it's also in audio form. And I have to give a shout out. It's one of those things that's now it seems like, oh yeah, Ed, you should have been doing that. But it was actually the woman who was the editor for all the novels I wrote about 10 years ago, who, when I was talking to her, she asked me if I was doing that. I was like, no. And I was like, well, why am I not doing that? That was just 4 months ago or something. So that's why I've started doing it. That's why I've started reading them and recording them. And of course, I started doing that with the Patreon blog at the same time. I figured out that a 3,000-word blog takes about 20 minutes to read. So I then can look at, well, this one's going to be 4,000, so it's going to take this long to record. And same way with the newsletter. The newsletters are usually around 4,000 words. So they take about 27, I don't know how long the recent ones. It's easily over 20 minutes to read. And thank you, Suzanne. Suzanne, I just re-listened to the Panky interview. Thank you, Suzanne Marley. I can't stand the news either. Usually doesn't thank. Well, thank you. I know I always see you on the page, Marlene. I always see you on the Unfound page. I appreciate it. Delane is saying about the Durst trial. I really hope the arrest affidavit is made public soon. Bear is in deep. Suzanne says, yes, it is. I listen to a lot of the podcast. All right, great. So once again, season 2, volume 3 will be out very, very shortly. And as soon as possible, I will post what the cover is going to look like. Let's move on to this. The Jody Who's the Truth, findjody.com. It's probably the only other podcast that I talk about that I say, you really, really got to listen to it. It's the only one that I know that I've listened to every episode since it came out. But a new episode came out, and my friend Caroline Lowe, who was the guest for the Jody's episode going back to November of last year, Caroline interviewed a woman who was around Jody at the time, was very close with Jody at the time, around the time that she disappeared. And so to listen to the entire interview, I hope you will go to findjody.com and listen to it. But what she says, what this friend says in talking to Caroline, and it's not a very long episode. What is it? 20, 25 minutes, something like that. But this friend readily admits that when Jody went missing, she did not suspect John Van Cise at all. John Van Cise, of course, was the older guy, much older than Jody and her friends. He was the guy that said he was going to name his boat after Jody, although he did not end up doing that. Many of you who know Jody's disappearance very well know that he's been a suspect for almost since day one. Maybe some of the things he said seemed out of place, a little strange. But this friend who knew John very well at the time, had hung out with him just like Jody did. She said, no, I never suspected it. Never thought of it. Maybe she does now, given all the attention that he's been given. But at the time when Jody went missing, it never entered her mind that John Van Cise would do anything to harm Jody. I would urge you to listen to it for yourself, this recent episode, but that was one of the main points from it. There were of course other ones. The episode's like 27 or 25 minutes long, but that's what caught my ear the most. And I think this is very telling. I think that, we've covered over 200 disappearances, and usually when you know, when you get into a situation like we've had with Rosemary Rapp and Marion Hurley, Angela Green, Julie Early, a lot of these women who seemingly were harmed by the men in their lives, that it's fairly obvious. And everybody thinks that. Now, it very well may be that people are wrong. But in all of these situations, the people who knew these women best suspected their man, whether it's a boyfriend or a husband. But it doesn't seem like this is the situation with Jody. And I think we need to remember that. I will tell you that there was a time, maybe, that I entertained the idea, and I've known about Jody's disappearance for over 20 years now, that I suspected John Van Cise like a lot of people do, but I have to admit these days that's not where I am, and I think my mind started to change even before I started Unfound. And you should know that Caroline Lowe from findjody.com, and I have talked about this many, many times. The pros of believing that John did it, the cons of believing John did it, the pros of this person doing it, the cons. We've done this, but what's usually most important are the impressions of the people who knew the missing people the best. We know that. I think that after as many episodes as you've listened to and as many as I've conducted, I think that we can say that. There are certain things that, you start to hear these things over and over and over. And one of them usually is that when a woman goes missing, everybody usually automatically suspects the man in her life. Well, Jody didn't technically have a man. Maybe she did. Maybe she did have some secret boyfriend. Maybe. No proof of that. But it doesn't seem that the people who knew Jody, the people who knew John Van Cise, suspected that he killed her. And so we're just going to have to remember that. So once again, findjody.com if you want to go listen to that episode. Caroline, great interviewer. From one interviewer, myself, to another interviewer, Caroline, she did a fine job in that episode. Let's see what everybody's... Hello, Brittany. How are you? Thanks for tuning in. Deborah says, acquaintances sometimes see red flags with the benefit of hindsight, sometimes not. Yeah. You're right. Sometimes, people's, it's very common, Deborah, for people's opinions and insights to change over time. For sure. No doubt about it. But I think in these kinds of disappearances where the woman does have a man in her life, whether it's a husband or a boyfriend or just something like this, where, this friend does say, maybe it did seem that John wanted to have something a little more with Jody and she didn't want to do it, but it doesn't seem like that was news. It was not something that just popped up right before Jody went missing. It sounds to me that it was fairly obvious, but John didn't seem, at least to this friend, didn't seem to put off by it. So people's attitudes can change, but I think what we have to remember, Deborah, is if people's attitudes do change, why do they change? Did the facts change? Or could it be that these people are just changing their mind because they find out that their theory is a minority view and they feel very uncomfortable being in the minority? In which case, then they're just succumbing to peer pressure. And so that's not what we're looking for here. What we're looking for is would be a change of opinion based on changing of facts. Remember, as facts change, theories change. Or as you get more facts, your theories change, however you want to put it. And it seems clear to me that pretty much since Jody went missing, there haven't been many new facts. Yes, they've gone after John. They've put stuff on his vehicles, tracking devices on his vehicles, and all these things. Those are facts in that they happened, but they don't have anything to do with her disappearance. So I continue to say that the whole circumstance of her going missing do not point at John Van Cise at all. Just don't. Deborah says memory is not reliable. Also, yeah, well, it's I know that's something, Deborah, that I run into in interviewing guests, that they will tell me certain things, and then when I start looking into what they've said, it's not exactly correct. They're not exactly lying, but certainly they've changed. Certainly something has gone on, that they misremember things. Once again, they're not lying. But after a while, the way our memories are, these things do tend to run together. And gets harder to pick out certain days of the week and dates. When did this happen? When did that happen? Certainly true. But I on the other hand, Deborah, I would say that our impressions of people never change. If there is somebody we didn't like in high school, it's not like these days, I graduated high school in 1989. Now in 2021, I look back at that person and say, oh no, I was totally wrong. That guy was like totally awesome. It's, you know what I mean? Our impressions of people are what they are. Well, maybe those people have changed. And if you were to run into that person in 2021, they're a totally different person. It's like, great. But, regarding John Van Cise, her opinion is her opinion on him. And the opinion was that it just never occurred to her to even think, would have never occurred to her to think that John Van Cise would ever do anything to harm Jodi. So, all right, let's move on to this. And Sheree surely knew that I was going to bring this up. Suzanne Morphew. Of course, she went missing from Colorado. And from day one, I think that a lot of people suspected that her husband did something to her, although he allegedly had an alibi. But still, these things persisted. And now we know that he has been charged with her disappearance and her death, even though her remains have not been found yet. But what has come out is that she was cheating on him. She was cheating on him with a friend of hers from high school. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is because, the tough thing about disappearances is that when you have situations with married people who have been around each other for a long time, as Barry and Suzanne were, and then suddenly, most of the time, of course, unfortunately, the woman is the one who goes missing. Then what is it after all of these years that things went this way? Fishing says, "Hey, all, love the new look. Let's go fishing." I'm not sure what you're talking about, Fishing. I'm over here in, if you don't know this, I'm over here in Orlando at an Airbnb doing the show this week, Fishing. But that's fine. Let's go fishing. But one of the big issues, maybe we could look at some of these. No, there's a different situation, of course, with like Zoe Campos and Carlos Rodriguez. They just got to know each other that day. I think that we're pretty much under the impression that maybe he tried to rape her, and of course she resisted, and he killed her. Very common scenario. But what's harder to understand is that people who are married for years and years and years, have children, go on vacations, have dogs, get together, and then all of a sudden the woman goes missing and the husband ends up being the main suspect. Even though there is no signs that there was any physical abuse, emotional abuse, cops never called to the house or anything like that. I don't really know the specifics for Barry and Suzanne's disappearance. Maybe they had called 911 a lot. I don't know. But what is it that changes after so many years? And so this is something that I've been thinking about Suzanne's disappearance from the beginning. And I know that a lot of people, following Suzanne's is a very well-known disappearance now. So what changed? And now we have that answer. I think we do. It was, what could have happened? I mean, it was Mother's Day, and what exactly happened? And now it seems to be very clear. And so these are the things that we look for in disappearances, something that changed. And in this case, it was Suzanne, it seems, was cheating on Barry, and it seems that Barry caught her. And I'm not an expert on this disappearance. I know Sheree and a couple other my assistants have been following it very closely. In fact, Sheree's writing, it was okay when it was buried, but no way it was on when it was Suzanne. Barry was always in control until he wasn't, right? Suzanne says, that shocked me. I figured Barry was cheating. That was shocking. Deborah, tranquilizer dart shell found in dryer. Ferris trash disposal site seems odd. Fishing says, too much reward told me all. Oh, you mean when Barry had put out a reward for information concerning Suzanne's disappearance? That's all you needed to know, Fishing? That's an interesting thought. I can't necessarily disagree with that kind of thinking, Fishing, but we now know what probably the initiator was, and that is that Suzanne was cheating on Barry. How long? Didn't see, and I guess if I can say this, Sheree also told me the other big issue was that Suzanne was cheating with a guy who was also married with children, just like the old comedy TV show. And so this guy did not want to come forward. And in fact, I think, Sheree, what you told me was that this guy tried to deny it, but he was being asked, why is your number showing up on her phone and these texts and everything else? Hey, what's going on here? And finally, this guy had to admit it. So this guy, even though he was cheating with Suzanne, he knows that she goes missing, and still he wants to keep his mouth shut. These are the types of people that drive me nuts. Suzanne says, she's right. It seems he found out and blew up. I pray they can find Suzanne's body. Yeah. Sheree says, I don't think they ever will, sadly. Barry had too many tools at his disposal. Yeah, then there's that. Sheree says, yeah, Jeff is the other man. Yeah. Just, I don't get it. We talk about, this is a frustrating thing when it comes to disappearances, that, we have to believe after 200 disappearances that there are people who know about these disappearances, who know things but don't come forward because they're more worried about themselves. It's almost certainly, after 200 some disappearances, you have to suspect that a little bit of that is going on. Not in every one, but probably in quite a few. I wouldn't say a majority of them, but enough that it's a sizable amount. And so Jeff is the kind of person that falls into that. Knows things, could come forward, doesn't want to do it. Deborah says, they say a bobcat digger wasn't involved, but I wonder. I don't know. This tranquilizer dart thing, I mean, that seems overtly complicated. Maybe that's what happened. But we have to remember that, a tranquilizer dart doesn't work immediately. This isn't the movies. I mean, maybe if you've watched National Geographic, they're going to tranquilize, maybe some, tiger is in a town and they want to take it back out into the wild. So they hunt it down, they tranquilize it, and they pick it up and take it back out, into the savannah or the jungle or something. Those tranquilizer darts don't knock an animal out in a second. There would still be a period of time after she got shot, if that's what happened, that she would have been running around or doing something. And then, of course, with the tranquilizer dart, you have to hit them in the right spot and everything. But maybe it certainly would be one of the more unique circumstances for a disappearance that I've heard. Sheree says, Jeff actually could have been the first person to raise the alarm bells. He could have, but he didn't. And that might cause this disappearance to never be solved, Sheree. Yeah. Fishing, doo-doo happens. Don't know enough. Nobody knows what she had to put up with. Yeah. Sheree, Barry is a game hunter and a landscaper. A lot of people going missing forever without those skills. Screaming like the old 70s and 80s flicks where they go under in a second or two. Yeah. Chloroform screaming. That was the old 70s thing, like on Charlie's Angels, and they put chloroform, whatever that is, in a napkin, wrap it around them, and in a second, boom, gone. It's not exactly how it works, but maybe that's what he did. Quicksand. There's another one. Quicksand. Yeah, quicksand. But maybe that's what happened. But we have to, as Sheree and I have talked about one-on-one, that we know these no-body cases are not slam dunks. We know that. And we can't rule out the idea that there might be some sympathy, in the jury. Well, Barry just kind of lost his mind. He found out his wife was cheating on him and he didn't know what he was doing. And instead of it actually being murder, where it might have been planned out, he might get manslaughter instead. And instead of getting whatever the penalty is in Colorado for murder, 25 years, 30 years life, I don't know. Maybe you'll get manslaughter and it'll be 5 years or something. Might happen. Deborah says, shooting 80-some chipmunks seems strange by Barry. The weird thing, Deborah, is I had my next door neighbor growing up in Gilpin Township, Pennsylvania, was like that. Did that. He did that. He did it to protect his garden. So he'd shoot chipmunks, he'd shoot squirrels all the time. Marcus says, how much circumstantial evidence do the police have in regards to this case? I don't know, Marcus. I don't know. I like I said, I'm not an expert on this disappearance. I just thought everybody would, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit and how it relates to a lot of unfounds disappearances. With these married people together for so many years, then poof, the woman's gone, and the guy's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know. All right. Well, that's really everything that I could put together today. I have to admit that thought I was going to have more time to put together an agenda for tonight's live show, but I didn't anticipate that I wouldn't be getting back here till 7:30. I'm just lucky I was able to do some things, write some things down on my phone while I was out on the disc golf course. So that takes us to this Friday's disappearance. And because, just kind of a unique set of circumstances going on the last few weeks with me being in Pennsylvania for 9 days where I don't get as much work done as I usually do. And then coming back and then almost immediately driving over here to play in this week-long disc golf, not week-long, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, although I won't be playing on Saturday. Kind of unique circumstances. This Friday, we'll be revisiting a disappearance, and I want to thank my assistant, Cherie, the moderator right there, for giving me this idea. I had asked her what we should do, being that, don't get me wrong, I've talked to a ton of people over like the last few weeks who will be guests come September. So I don't want you to all think, well, maybe you're running out of guests. That is not the case. And in fact, I even have two, as I told you earlier, Emily has me talking to two more people on Sunday, but just too much going on. I thought we might get an interview done on Sunday, but just couldn't make the schedule happen. So maybe we'll try for this weekend. But this Friday, we are revisiting the disappearance of Flight 370. And it's still unsolved all these years later. After the most expensive search in the history of mankind, they've still not been able to find that jet with all of those people in it. So we will be revisiting that. Of course, Jeff Wise, aviation expert, Flight 370 expert, was the guest way back during the summer of 2017. And he continues to be that. I still believe he makes the most sense regarding what could have happened to Flight 370. He's written 2 books on it. I've gotten them both. I've listened to both of them, audiobooks. And I would certainly recommend you go to his website, jeffwise.net, not .com, but .net. And I'll, of course, be writing a blog about this. I did not have a chance to write a blog back in 2017 for Patreon, because this was before I started writing blogs for Patreon. But I will have a chance finally to write about it for all of you Patreon supporters, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. But the point I make in my summary, though, is that although Flight 370 is certainly a unique disappearance, not just in Unfound terms, but in any terms, it is a lot like your regular disappearance, where searches are done, nothing is found, people start making assumptions. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. Conflicting information. This is true. No, this is true. This is true. No, this is true. Same thing. A lot of people who claiming that they know all these things, but when you start to listen to their theory, it doesn't fit the facts. So in one way, it's certainly unique. Not just it's historically unique. But in many other ways, I think that, the tough thing about Flight 370 from just your disappearance point of view is that it's very technical. I'm going to guess maybe many of you have already listened to that episode. If you haven't, the original, you could just wait for Friday. But it's very technical regarding satellites and pings and GPS and all of this stuff. And, the electronics of the aircraft. I mean, things that we never cover on any disappearance. And we've covered the disappearance of another jet. Remember Ben Charles Padilla. But if you have a tough time, what I'm saying to you is any of you have a tough time, I just get confused. What's he trying to say with the radar and everything? I think the best place to start in trying to understand it, just look at it like all the other disappearances we've covered on Unfound. Okay? But in this situation, a bunch of people go missing, but it's all the same stuff. You have facts, you have pings, you have this information. People think, well, this jet has to be right here. We're going to go look like that. That's surely where it is, and it isn't found. Kind of like Jason Landry not being found yet, even though we know where his car wrecked. Search is done, nothing's found. It's the same thing. Same thing with Flight 370. We have a variety of theories regarding many disappearances that we've covered. The problem, of course, in many of them, though, is it doesn't fit the facts. We have conspiracy theories like the smiley face killer hoax and all of that regarding everyday person disappearances. And likewise, you have those kinds of theories regarding Flight 370. I mean, there are even YouTube channels out there trying to sell the idea that it got beamed up to a UFO. Now, what's interesting, having said all that, is that at least people, the mainstream or a majority of the aviation community, thinks Jeff Wise, the guest who was on Unfound, you'll hear his interview again this Friday, they think he's crazy. You have to keep that in mind. Now, I'm not saying they don't like him or anything, but when he starts talking about how the flight was probably hijacked and there was some false information put into the computer to make the jet look like it was going one way when it was going the opposite way, a lot of people start thinking, Jeff, you're crazy. And you should know Jeff Wise is very respected in the aviation industry. If you ever watch any of the air crash investigation episodes, he's been on those. He's been interviewed for them. Several episodes. but he has put himself kind of on his own island with his own theory. And, but the reason I continue to respect Jeff, even though I usually don't go in that direction regarding disappearances, is because he's said almost from day one that they're not going to find anything in the Indian Ocean. And here's why. You look at this, you look at this, you look at all factual scientific data, you look at it, and he said, not going to find him. Even everybody said, oh, no, we're going to do it. We're going to find it. You know what you're talking about. And Jeff is still right. So that always means something when somebody can lay out an argument with facts and stick to it in the face of peer pressure, of industry pressure, and what he does. I'm always going to respect a person like that. It very well may be that Jeff ends up being wrong, but being that he continues to back up his theory with the science and is not caved to peer pressure, he gets all the respect in my book. And that's why he was on the program back then. And that's why I continue to respect him to this day. Last time I spoke to him back and forth with emails, probably a few months ago. Good guy. So once again, this Friday, Flight 370. And at the end, go through a little details of why. Just remember, Flight 370's disappearance is not much different than any other disappearance out there. And I talk a little bit about that. So, Charlotte says, it's really hard to know the truth in these cases because people lie so much, especially in a murder case like Suzanne's. Deborah says, you would think something of that Boeing 777 would be found. Well, there have been things that have washed ashore, Deborah, over on the coast of Africa. The problem is that the pieces that have been found don't look like they were in the water that long. And it would have taken the plane hit way over on the east side of the Indian Ocean. For them to get the whole way over to Africa would have taken a long time, whereas these items look like they were just put in the water just days before they were found. So some people would say those are pieces of the Boeing 777. Jeff Wise and others and myself would say they aren't. Where was the last ping on radar? Well, a little bit. It's just, unfortunately, it's just not that easy to explain that. The fact is that pinger was shut off, but it was the jet could be tracked by other methods using satellites. Sheree says, Colorado is one of the best states for making these things stick. Fingers crossed they do it again. Marlene says, yes, I saw Jeff Wise on one of the air crash shows. Yep, he was. Kristen, thank you. You're very, very generous. Kristen, thank you. You're very kind. Thank you for your contribution. But that's all I have for tonight. I'm just glad I got to do like an hour and 45-minute show, given the circumstances of today. Playing, I teed off at 12:30. We were out there for 6 hours. No wonder I didn't play very well. Of course, a couple guys on my card didn't play very well either. One did, the other two not so much. So there you go. Rachel says, just want to stop and show support for your podcast. I listen to your channel every night to fall asleep, and you're great. Well, as long as I'm not putting you to sleep, Rachel. Thank you. Hello, Ed. I respect your work in this community. Longtime watcher, listener. Thank you, RG. Thanks for everybody tuning in. Hello, Jamie. Thank you, Rachel. All these people getting in late, but I appreciate for watching. And, but I'm going to go now. I am extremely thirsty. I'm feeling a little parched. I'm feeling a little dehydrated. So I'm going to get some liquids in me. I'm also very tired, but it was good seeing all of you. Thank you for listening to my disc golf rant at the beginning. Had to get it off my chest, but just extremely frustrated. Keep your head on a swivel, like Cherie says. Actually, that's what I said, but Cherie says that I say that. And you'll hear me on Friday when we revisit the disappearance of Flight 370. Good night from Orlando.